All right, it is 9 o'clock on a Thursday evening. That means it is time for the Prosperity Report Live. With us this week, we have once again our co host, Drew Ria. Drew, how's it going?
Good, John. How are you?
I'm doing great. Just got back from the Armstrong County Libertarian meeting. We had a guest at the Libertarian meeting this evening, candidate for the governor of Pennsylvania, Ken Krawcheck, came by to visit. So it was a pretty good meeting. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, always good to see Ken. He's gearing up for his 2026 run, which will be exciting. Ken's a longtime libertarian in Pennsylvania. He's run for governor, I believe he said two or three times previous. So
I think Ken was the first libertarian I ever voted for.
Yeah,
when he ran for governor.
I think he's, for me personally, I'm pretty sure he's tied because I voted for Dale Kearns in 2018 for U.S. Senate, running against Bob Casey, and then Ken was also on the ballot that year for governor, and I'm pretty sure I voted for him too. So, yeah, I'm sure if you go through the ranks of Pennsylvania libertarian voters, I'm sure Ken is first or one of the first for a lot of them. So it was always good to see him again. He's always got good stories, and in Ken fashion asked if we had joined Toastmasters yet. So free plug to Toastmasters here on the stream.
Yeah.
Ken is one of the best speakers I've ever met, and he always attributes that to Toastmasters. So
yes, and every once in a while at our state conventions, he will lead a Toastmaster session, and I got to speak at the Toastmaster session, this most recent Libertarian State Conference, and it was very interesting, a very worthwhile experience. So yes, in honor of our friend Ken, if you have an opportunity to participate in Toastmasters, take advantage of that. That's a good experience. Well, on to the show's content for this week, Drew. It is a very special week in America. Do you know what we're celebrating this week, Drew?
I do, but I'm going to let you tell everyone.
It is Banned Books Week. Banned Books Week. It's apparently this week, according to the Library Association. Banned Book Week is, I think, started on Saturday and runs to this coming Saturday. And as libertarians, we are against banning of books. We think that everyone has the right of speech, the right of thought, the right to share those thoughts with others is a foundational freedom that is not granted by the government, but it is something that's granted by God himself. Or if you don't believe in God and you're still a libertarian, get to know God, but by nature herself. It's something that God gives us. Government can only get in the way and take it away or protect it. So as libertarians, we strongly defend the right of authors to publish books, the right of people to read books, the right of people to buy books, whatever books that the market will provide. We are in complete support of those books being available on the market. So, Banned Books Week, pretty important stuff. But I have good news. Good news on that front. This is just in, Drew. Books are not being banned in America. Believe it or not. Books are not being banned in America.
Get out of here.
just came across my desk that in America we are not banning books. So that is quite the relief. So what do they talk about whenever they mention banned books in America if no books are being banned? Well, I have an article here from the American Library Association. And well, let's just go ahead and share it. Share the screen here. You think I would get used to how where these buttons are. Um, all right. Oh, I, all right. Oh, I think I'm sharing the wrong screen here. Hold on.
Maybe they banned the screen you're trying to share.
Yeah, yeah. These book bans are becoming too much. uh it would help if I had a little bit of time between getting back from our meeting and getting time to prepare.
Yeah, in typical libertarian fashion, there was the meeting and then the after meeting, and then the gather around a car, in this case, John's, because we were restocking on campaign merch and lit and stuff, and talk for a good 10-20 minutes. So
yeah. All right. So here's our article from the American Library Association. So in a time of deep political divides, library staff across the country are facing an overwhelming number of book ban attempts. Oh my goodness, they're attempting to ban books. This is bad news. In 2023 alone, the American Library Association's Office for Intellectual Freedom tracked 1,247 efforts to censor books and other resources in libraries, an increase of 65% from the year before. In a total of 4,240 unique book titles were targeted, many of them representing LGBTQIA plus and BIPOC voices and experiences. So, wow, this is alarming stuff. I was interested in seeing what these 1,247 books were. So I followed the link, thinking that would give me a list, but no list here of those books. So it says on the link, in preparation of Banned Books Week, the American Library Association released preliminary data. Oh, that's a link. I'll bet that should show the specific titles, right? Oh no, it just mentions the 1,128 unique titles again. So apparently they don't list the titles of the specific books. But here's the thing: none of these books are banned. None of them. 0 of these books are banned. You can purchase any of these books that you want. Just go onto Amazon, purchase the books, and you can find almost any book that's well, probably any book on this list. I haven't checked to see if when Harry Became Sally is on the banned book list. That's one you can't get on Amazon because Amazon stopped selling it because it goes against the trans ideology. And you can purchase Mein Kampf by Hitler on Amazon, but you can't purchase When Harry Became Sally on Amazon, interestingly enough. But even that book, even the one book that you can't get on Amazon, is not banned. If you happen to have that book and you're walking around with it, no police officers are going to come and club you in the head. You're not going to be kicked out of a school if you happen to have that book on you. It's not banned, and none of these other books are really banned either. What they mean by banned is that it's not being subsidized by the government, and that is very different than being banned. Few people would say that semi-automatic weapons are banned in America. As a matter of fact, people complain that semi-automatic weapons are not banned in America. Some people want semi-automatic weapons to be banned. Yet, I still have not gone to a local library and been able to borrow a semi-automatic weapon for a week and then take it back. because they're not subsidized by the government. So we have different meanings of the word banned based on what it is that people want to talk about being banned, and the political ideology of the people who want to see something, talk about something being banned. So they're using a word incorrectly to propagandize people, because America is a libertarian leaning country. Even though the Libertarian Party doesn't win a lot of elections, in our heart of hearts, Americans are libertarian. So we don't like the concept of banned books. So if they want to get Americans riled up, they will talk about something like banned books, even though no books are being banned. It's an appeal to emotions, because we have a deep emotional attachment to free speech. We have a deep emotional attachment to free press. And if you frame the debate in a way that it sounds like that free speech or free press is being attacked, you are going to score some points in that framework. So that's why they use that terminology of banned. What they mean by banned tends to be that different state legislatures, or maybe even local governments, local school boards even, are saying there are certain books that we will not have in our library. And we need to ask, is that a legitimate purview of a government? And it's an interesting question, because we believe in the non-aggression principle. Should governments be able to say what is and is not allowed in a library? Well, if it is a public library, by default, government officials are going to be making a decision about what is and is not allowed in that library. Drew, remember that gift that we gave to our local public library for their 100th birthday?
Yeah. We, as the Armstrong County Party, we got together a bunch of classic libertarian works of everything from economics to, I think we even had a couple of like libertarian children's books in there. I want to say 25 maybe books that we donated to the local library, basically as kind of like the hope was that there was going to be, we'd be able to tell people, if, here's the list that we donated. And if you want to check out these books, learn more about the philosophy, you can go to the Katanning Library, and they're right there.
So based on that gift, if I go down to the Katanning Library and request a copy of Human Action by Ludwig von Mises, they would have it available, right?
Well, no, because the library decided, and I've never even kind of held it against them. It's kind of what libraries do, is they, when they get book donations, they go through the books and determine, hey, these ones we're going to put on the shelves. These ones, if they're newer, I'm sure that they probably sell them online to get a better return. And then in the Katanning Library's case, they do, was it Bag of Books Day, or?
Yeah, they do an annual book sale, which I love, by the way. So if any of the Katanning librarians are listening, I appreciate your annual book sales. And on the last day of the sale, you can get all the books that you can fit into a brown grocery store bag for $5. So it's a great sale. And I was able to get a lot of libertarian books that year.
So yeah, I wouldn't say that those books were banned from the library. I would just say that the people that are in charge of running the library curated their collection to, what they felt was the best needs for the library. And that seems to be a perfectly reasonable thing to do.
That does seem like a reasonable thing to do. Something that is, if you're a librarian, that's part of your job, is to curate books and resources. So we have limited shelf space in a library. You cannot have every single title ever printed on the shelves of our local library. It's not that big. So they absolutely have to make decisions about what does and what does not go on the shelves. So this debate comes down to not so much of whether or not books are going to make it onto the shelf of libraries, but what it comes down to is who's going to make the decision about what types of books go on the shelves of libraries. Now, in a free market where libraries were funded either through user fees or through voluntary contributions, the library itself probably would make those decisions. And if they would make a bad decision, they would suffer loss. If they would give, if all they had on their shelves were Ludwig von Mises, then you and I would probably hang out at the library a lot, but very few other people would. So they would probably lose resources by making that decision. If it's a charitable library, people would stop donating to them. If it's like a subscription-based library service, people would stop buying their subscriptions. So if it's a privately funded library, the library would make that decision, but they would have a feedback mechanism, which is a profit and loss structure system. Because libraries in our country, for the most part, are taxpayer funded, they don't have that feedback mechanism. There's no feedback mechanism to say, if you're putting lots of LGBTQIA, I forget what all those letters were, plus books on the
there's the plus, yeah.
If you're putting all of those books, if that's all you have on the shelves, maybe a market likes that, maybe it does not. They don't know, because there is no profit feedback mechanism for that. So then it becomes, well, how then do we decide what kind of books are appropriate for the shelves and which are not, if we don't have that feedback mechanism? So because there's an adult bookstore here in Katanning. It's actually across the river in West Katanning, and some people affectionately refer to that as the West Katanning Library. And it has books that you would not consider to be appropriate for like our public library, and people accept that. People say yes, those books are not appropriate for the public library. But who gets to make that decision? So some would say that decision ought to be made by the librarians themselves. Others would say that decision ought to be made by elected officials. Well, think about the system of government that America has. We have a democratic republic. We hear oftentimes that, oh, our democracy is being threatened. Our democracy is being threatened. So if we have a democratic system, who ought to make the decision? Those who are elected by the people, or those who are unelected? The librarians, the bureaucrats. And it seems like if we believe in democracy, then the answer is it ought to be the elected officials that decide what does and does not go on the shelves. That doesn't mean they're banning books. Saying that these books are the books we're deciding not to put on the shelves just means these are the books we're deciding not to put on the shelves. That's no different than the librarian deciding that these are the books that they're not putting on the shelves. It's just who's making the decision, an elected person or an unelected person. So for all this talk about most of the people who are complaining about banned books are people who worry that our democracy is under attack. Well, if you believe in democracy, act like it. It would be like, okay, we're going to let our elected officials, our democratically elected officials, make these decisions rather than our unelected officials. And that gets me, since we're talking about language use here, particularly this word banned, it gets me thinking to the language that's used by the right. They refer to the deep state or the swamp or the blob, like lots of different terms for these unelected officials who are basically running the government. But there's already a word for that. Just like Bob Casey keeps creating new words for inflation, there was already a word for these unelected officials who are running our government. We know that Joe Biden is not running our government, right? That's not coming off as news to anybody. Like, he's not in charge. So who is? Well, the answer is bureaucrats. But that answer, that word has been used so much, I think it's lost its original meaning. So if I talk about a democracy, we know what that means. Demos, cracy, means the rule of the people. The rule of the people. That's what democracy means. Theocracy, theos, cracy, the rule of God. It's a system of government where God rules. Well, what does bureaucracy mean? It means it's a rule by bureaus. That's what bureaucracy means. It means that the bureaus are in charge. The unelected bureaus are in charge of making decisions. And we need to get away from that. We need to reduce the amount of power that the unelected bureaus have. We need to get rid of, so whether you call it the swamp, the blob, the deep state, whatever you call it, it's a bureaucracy. It's the rule of the bureaus, and we need to get away from that. And that is exactly what the people who are complaining about banned books are saying we need more of. They're saying we need the bureaus to make the decisions. We don't want elected officials making the decisions. So that's a little bit about the democracy. Now, a lot of my Republican friends will point out that we're not a democracy; we're a republic. And as a republic, and they're right. Like the reason we don't ban books, even if 99% of the voting public said we ought to ban these books, they ought not be banned, because we're a republic, and our system of, we have rights that can't be taken away by the people. So and I'm talking about truly banned, not this made up banned that people use. So we don't ban books. So that's good news. I'm sure a lot of people out there who are worried about book bans are breathing a sigh of relief right now. They're like, oh, thank goodness, books are not being banned. I can sleep easy tonight. Next year, I can erase this week off my calendar. I don't need to worry about it. Everything's going to be great. Do you think that's going to be the reaction from the people who are worried about book banning, Drew? They're going to be like,
probably
yes.
not, but like it a little bit. It should. Because there are places in this world where totalitarian regimes come in and do ban books. They do say nowhere within our, jurisdiction is this book allowed to exist. Are you allowed to carry this book, have this book on your person, in your home, wherever? And so I think we kind of take that for granted sometimes. And maybe that's why you see the changing of the language of using the banned books, right? Because it's such a non-issue that to elevate it to the point of your personal outrage for a decision, you have to elevate the language to communicate that to other people. Rallying, you're knocking on people's doors and talking to your neighbors about your local library not curating the book selection to your liking doesn't really have that sting, right?
Yeah.
You're not going to get a local campaign going in your community with that type of language. But if you're saying that they're banning books, as you were saying earlier, we have such an adverse reaction still as a country, despite the, living under the world's largest empirical regime. The average everyday American has such an adverse reaction to the word ban, especially when you're talking about
with books, yes,
speech, whatever, that it does elicit that emotional reaction from people. And so to communicate your emotional reaction to this thing going on, you have to elevate your language to communicate that, to get that same emotional reaction from others. And so I think that's a real example of, how important language is in our society. And how important it is to kind of understand what's going on everywhere else in the world. There are places where, throughout human history, where if you had this book, you would be, luckily arrested, if not
Right.
shot.
Yeah.
And many, many people have taken a bullet or a death sentence because they had the wrong ideas or the wrong literature. And so we should be thankful that that's not here, and we should work to protect that, to keep that from coming here, rather than getting up in arms about, decisions being taken away from the bureaucracy.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you brought up like places where that does happen, because I think that whenever we use language to to convey something that it's not taking place in reality, then it cheapens that language.
Yeah.
So at first, it's like newly printed money. At first, it's going by the same amount that it did whenever it was newly printed. But once it starts getting used and once it starts circulating around, that word just becomes weaker and weaker and weaker. So that eventually the concept of banned books will not elicit that same emotional reaction, because people will be like, well, I looked into those books that you said were banned and they're all available on Amazon. So I just don't take I just don't take it seriously when people talk about banned books now. And then once America stops taking banned books seriously, and they do want to come in and ban books for real, then it's going to be a lot easier for them. So we need to protect our language.
Yes.
We absolutely need to protect our language. Our language is one of the most libertarian institutions there is. It wasn't created by a government. It was created by people just freely interacting with one another. And it's got to be people who are freely interacting with one another who protect that language and keep it meaning, because language affects everything. It affects how you think. Like whenever I think in English. That's so if I think for like, I don't think of how many words for snow do Eskimos have. Like they say they have like 25 different words for snow.
Yep.
Like I think of snow as snow. Like maybe powder, or packing snow. So maybe a couple different. But my thoughts of snow are limited by my language. The language affects everything right down to how we think. So that's why it's very important that we think about language, that we consider the language that we use, and really call people out whenever they try to make emotional appeals based on something that's not really happening. Fully automatic weapons are banned in America. Books are not. Heroin is banned in America. Books are not. Like their banned has a meaning.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I bring this up and people are like, oh, well, we mean something different whenever we talk about books. I was like, yeah, I know you do. So stop using the word banned.
I know what you mean. Actually, like
yeah. So yeah, that is an issue. But what I'm really amazed at is because it's banned books week, and I like to troll people. So I get in these unproductive conversations. But what really is, I don't think I should be surprised about this anymore because it happens so often. But you tell people this, and you go through those examples, and you get them to the point where they almost see it. And then they get angry with you. They're like, how dare you tell me that books aren't being banned? Like, shouldn't that come as a relief to you? Like if you don't want books to be banned and here's evidence that books are not being banned, you should be happy about that. Like, this is good. This is a good thing that books aren't being banned. Be joyful. Um, like, if you want to run a campaign on joy, be joyful whenever things like like books are not being banned is brought to your attention. Wow, that's a great thing. But no, they're not. It reminds me of COVID. Like, early
Yeah.
on in COVID, I pointed out that a couple of months into COVID, I pointed out that more people in Pennsylvania, and I don't know how long this statistic held true, but at one point, more people in Pennsylvania who were over the age of 100 died of COVID than people who were under the age of 50. Now, there aren't that many people over the age of 100. Like, very, very few people make it that far.
It was a pretty
So,
high watermark.
yes, and more people were over the age of 50 dying, or 100, than under the age of 50, and that should have been a relief to people. Like, oh well, let me think. I'm pretty sure everybody I know personally is under the age of 100. Like, I don't think I know any. I have them in the past. I've known people over the age of 100, but I think currently I don't know anybody over the age of 100. So that should be a relief to me. Like good that people I know are safe. But no, that's not how people reacted. People were like, "How dare you tell me I should not be terrified? Like, I need to be. I have a right to be terrified. I have a right to be scared." And it's the same thing with book banning. How dare you tell me that I don't need to worry about books being banned? Like, I want to be mad. No, just relax. Take a deep breath. Calm. Books are not being banned, and COVID isn't killing 17-year-olds.
Like you said, I mean, with the whole joy campaign thing, there really isn't a lot of joy, like, and that's why I love the revolution branding. I know we brought this up a couple of episodes ago, but like liberty and freedom and the core tenets of libertarianism are things that should be celebrated and often are celebrated in our larger culture. That's the difference between, our message and some of the other messages out there is that, they have to tell you that you should be happy, right? They have to brand it like this is joy. This campaign's about joy. You should be happy. Meanwhile, you go online, they're not happy. They're, like you said, there's always something to be outraged about. Whereas our message kind of speaks for itself, right? Leaving your neighbor to live their life as they see fit without your intervention, as long as they're not harming anyone, is a good thing. Is the ultimate way that you can love your neighbor. Not having our government fund the bombing of innocent civilians is a good thing. That's a message of love and joy that, you don't have to tell people, hey, we should be dropping less bombs. For the most part, people agree with that.
Right.
So our message kind of speaks for itself in those terms. And, now it's just kind of up to us to kind of make that connection for people, right? That connection is really easy to sell when the ideas behind the message back it up. It's really difficult to sell joy when you're never joyous.
When you get mad when somebody brings you good news.
Yes, yeah. And so I think that's a big, and that's, like you said, why we need to protect language, because at the end of the day, a healthy society is able to communicate ideas clearly. They're able to engage with ideas that they disagree with. And we don't have that right now. And I think a big portion of why our society's gotten to that place where we can't have that is because of the language. Everyone's saying something or everyone is saying words that don't mean what they're intending that word to mean. And And so when you encounter someone with a different perspective and you're speaking words that don't actually mean what you think they mean, that other person's going to hear a different message. And probably if you're angry about something, they're probably going to shrug it off because they're like, oh, that's not a big deal. And then you just get angrier at them. And then they'll say something that, they mean one way and you hear it a different way. And then you're nonchalant and they get angry. So it's not conducive to a healthy society where we've gotten to this point where we're using words almost like catchphrases instead of for what they actually mean. And I think the book, the quote unquote banned books is a perfect example of that. If there were book bans across the country, a lot of people should and would be concerned. But when you're constantly having to run these publicly funded campaigns to tell people that books are being banned when they're really not a good indication that you're, fighting on the right side of this one.
Yeah. So takeaway here is bake a cake for all of your friends who are in prison for having a banned book on them. And then you can eat that cake too, because there's going to be nobody to take it to. And cake makes you happy, and you'll be more joyful. But accept joyful news. Like if somebody causes you to think about something a little bit differently and to embrace something that's more optimistic, accept optimism. I think that too often we just, and this is true for libertarians sometimes too. Like
Oh,
we just like people are so black pilled, nothing can go right, but no, there are causes, there are opportunities for hope. The fact that they do choose to use the word banned books is because so many of us Americans love the idea of freedom. And if that's not a white pill, if that's not a calls for optimism, I don't know what is. Like even the fact that, yes, I'm upset that they use that word in that way, but even that is a call for optimism. The reason they're choosing that word is because we care about it.
Yeah,
we love freedom. We desire freedom. And they know that, so that's why they house they couch their language with terms that are going to cause a reaction. So I think that's a good note to end it on. Any campaign updates or anything for us today, Drew?
Let's see. The LPPA is going to be on our side of the state this weekend for their in-person meeting. So I know we've got a couple of events that we're doing tomorrow and into the weekend for the campaign to get people riled up. Regular campaign meetings on Monday nights at 9:00. So if you're out there interested in helping out as we hit the home stretch here, just reach out to the campaign. We'll get you tied in with our campaign meetings, get you working on some projects. I know we have a few more that are developing. Once those are kind of finalized and ready to go, we'll let you know on the stream. But otherwise, no, I think it's been a good messaging week. Shout out to Morgan in Butler County, who's been helping us out with getting John's message out there, and everyone else too. Keep sharing the message on social media. Keep talking to your friends, your family, your neighbors, coworkers, whoever will listen about joining in on this movement, because the first step of it is sending a message on election day. The vote is much more than just going and making sure, it's much more than a protest vote. It's about sending a message that we need to get out of these wars and we need to stop the money printing. And if we send a strong enough message, then we can continue this movement with the state party, with the county parties. We have a lot of awesome things coming, everywhere from your local county chapter to the national party. There are really good people across the country working on projects to advance freedom. And It's only up from here. So let's keep the push going.
All right, great. And one last thing to plug. I was on PCN earlier this week. So if you go to PCN's website, you can find my interview there. I have been hearing a lot of positive takes on that. So I hope you enjoyed that. If you got a chance to watch it, if you did not, we posted it on Twitter. We posted it on Facebook, where you can go to the PCN website and you can find it there. But that's it for this week's episode of the Prosperity Report. Remember, it's up to you to bring prosperity and peace to Pennsylvania. The government's not going to do it for you, but you can help bring it one neighborhood at a time. Just love your neighbors.